Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh to Madam Shafina and to all my fellow friends. So my name is Muhammad Syafiq bin Saidu Muhammad with my friends Nurafida Alia binti Muhammad Jafaruddin, Muhammad Amran bin Abdul Malik, Muhammad Syahiran bin Mansur and Muhammad Iqbal bin Rosli. So today we would like to present about the economic growth and its effect on the fluctuations in exchange rates and the impact of economic growth as a whole. So, before we proceed with our presentation, let's take a look at first our contents for this presentation. So, as we can see here, there are 4 contents for our presentation for this topic. So, first we have what is economic growth, and then we'll go through the effect of economic growth on exchange rate changes, and then impact of economic growth as a whole, and finally we have the conclusion for our presentation. So we proceed with my friend for the first slide, which is the economic growth. What is meant by that?
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Nurafida Alia binti Muhammad Jafaruddin, and today I will explain about what is economic growth. So, economic growth is an increase in the productions of and value of an economic goods and services over time, which means economic growth is increase in the productions of economic goods and services compared from one period of time to another. Dan ia juga boleh diukur dalam bentuk nominal or real adjusted for inflation term. And traditional aggregate economic growth diukur dari segi gross national products or gross domestic product. Even kadang-kadang alternative metric are used. And for the second point, increase in capital goods, labor force, technology and human capital can all contribute to economic growth, which means dalam ekonomi, growth commonly model as function of physical capital, human capital, labor force and technology. Secara ringkasnya, saya boleh ringkaskan untuk meningkatkan kuantiti ataupun kualiti populasi usia bekerja, alat yang harus mereka gunakan dan juga resepi yang mereka ada untuk gabungkan tenaga kerja, capital and then raw materials. Dengan ini, ia dapat meningkatkan ekonomi output. Jadi poin yang ketiga adalah economic growth is commonly measured in terms of the increase in the aggregated market value of additional goods and services produced using estimates such as GDP. Okay, in simple terms, untuk kita fahami, economic growth is refers to increase in aggregate production dalam ekonomi. Tapi tak semestinya, because keuntungan aggregate ni in production correlate dengan peningkatan purata productivity. Ia juga membawa kepada peningkatan pendapatan, bagi inspirasi kepada pengguna to open up their wallet and buy more, which means a higher material quality of life or standard of living. Okay, so real gross domestic product is the best way to measure economic growth, which means for additional point you need to know is the real gross domestic product is the best way to measure economic growth, because it takes into account the country's entire economic output. They also include all goods and services that business in the country produce for sale. So tak kira whether they are sold in domestically or in overseas.
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Iqbal bin Rosli, metric number 19BB05008. So next I will present about how economic growth can affect the exchange rates. So a strong exchange rate can depress economic growth because it will make the export more expensive, therefore less demand for export. And the effect is import will be cheaper, so more demand for imported goods and therefore less demand for domestically produced goods. And it will reduce the aggregate demand or AD. And for the economic growth, to keep the currency high, the government keep the interest rate high. But high interest rate will reduce the rate of economic growth. So what we can conclude here is A strong exchange rate is often considered to be a sign of economic strength. It can become a symbol of national pride. So they will point to a strong exchange rate as a symbol of economic success. Okay, next is the fall in value of exchange rate can boost to economic growth. So it because of firstly is a lower exchange rates make export cheaper and increase demand for goods. So this can provide additional demand which increase economic growth. So a devaluation or fall in value of exchange rates may cause inflation where imports are more expensive and higher demand for domestic goods. So here I have provided the effect of devaluation. So we can see from the effect of where import more expensive and export cheaper, it will make the inflation higher. But if demand for export and import is relatively elastic and there is some spare capacity in the economy, then there should be an increase in economic growth.
In a way, UK experience dalam exchange rate movement and Black Wednesday was their lucky way out being in the euro. If they manage to survive in the exchange rate movement and merge with the euro, things will be different. As you can see in this chart, in 1992, UK experienced a large devaluations as it left the exchange rate movement dan membolehkan interest rate jatuh from record high of 15%. This is because a strong economy recovery and the low inflationary economic growth of the 1990 dan dapat juga menyumbang kepada peningkatan pada sterling kerana it's regain a former value. So look at the next chart. In 2008, devaluations did not really help economic growth. There was a sharp fall in GDP pada 2009. The negative impact of the credit crunch was very strong. This offset the effect of cheaper export expansion. So since the world economy is in a recession, cheaper UK export are not causing an increase in demand.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. My name is Muhammad Amran. Now we go to impact of economic growth. So I want to explain example of graph about consumer income increase that relate to economic growth. An increase in economic growth cause unemployment to decrease and incomes to rise. One reason for this is that firms have less people to choose from when hiring new employees due to reduced unemployment. As a result of this, in order to attract certain people in the job market to work for them instead of another firm, they will have to pay them a high wage. Furthermore, when taking a classical standpoint, if economic growth takes the economy to a short-term equilibrium past the full employment rate, in the long run workers will revise up their wage. Therefore, there will be an increase in consumer incomes. Okay. The increase in aggregate demand, which is 81 to 82, caused an increase in real gross domestic product, which is Y1 to Y2, which result in an increase in economic growth. An increase in real gross domestic product can reduce the amount of spare capacity within the economy. The increase in quantity or quality or factor of production cause long run aggregate supply one is increased. Therefore, the economy move closer towards the full employment output, which is YFE. As a result of this, the amount of cyclical unemployment within the economy is decreased. This is shown by the reduction in the negative output gap, which is from Y1 to YFE and Y2 to YFE. The reduction in unemployment can be explained by the fact that the demand for labor is derived from the total demand for goods or service within the economy. Therefore, an increase in aggregate demand will cause an increase in the demand for labor, thus reducing unemployment. That's all.
Thank you, Amran, for the previous explanation. So now we'll go through the second impact of economic growth as a whole, which is increase in investment. So the increase in business confidence and profits is caused by economic growth, often leads to higher levels of investment by firms. This is because they are more confident that they will continue to do well as a business, and therefore they are able to reduce the amount of profit that they save or don't invest. The increase in investments also will benefit firms in the form of increased efficiency or productivity, which in turn will lower their costs. This is due to the technological advancements that come from investment. The accelerator effect can also explain the increase in investment. This is when firms increase their investment due to the fact that they believe there will be an increase in the demand for their goods or services in the future, which is signaled through an increase in the economic growth rate. So, investment means expenditure on capital spending, for example, buying new machines, building bigger factories, buying robots to enable automation. So, in economics, investment does not mean by saving money in a bank. So, based on the graph, investment is a component of aggregate demand, which is meant by AD. Therefore, if there is an increase in investment, it will help to boost the aggregate demand and short-run economic growth. So if there is a spare capacity, then increased investment and a rise in aggregate demand will increase the rate of economic growth. However, if the economy is close to full capacity, then rising in aggregate demand will only cause inflation and not an increase in real GDP. However, there are other factors that affect aggregate demand apart from investment. For example, if there was a fall in consumer spending or a fall in exports, then a rise in investment may not actually increase the aggregate demand. Investment is not the biggest component of aggregate demand, approximately 16%. So the biggest component of aggregate demand is consumer spending, which is approximately 66%. So the conclusion based on the second point is when the economic growth increase, so the investment will also increase.
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Syahran bin Mansur. So we are going to the next slide, which is conclusion. So we'll conclude overall of this topic. So first of all, as we know that the exchange rate can have an influence on economic growth, a strong exchange rate is often considered to be a sign of economic strength. It can become a symbol of national pride. Often, politicians are worried if they see a weakening in the exchange rates. They will point to a strong exchange rate as a symbol of economic success. Next, foreign exchange rates, which is the value of the money of a country in the currency of another country. It is important factor in determining the real value of the money of a country. Foreign exchange rate can deeply influence the economy of a country. The economic factors which influence the foreign exchange rate includes balance of payment. A rate includes balance of payments, economic growth, money supply, inflation rate, unemployment rate, and others. We move to the next point is the sustainability of growth depends on the foreign exchange rates. Okay, that is to say, one should consider the sources of growth. If the sources of growth is investment, especially foreign investment and export, the money of the country will increase in value and growth will be possible. Okay, in the long term, a strong exchange rate tends to occur in countries with low inflation, improving competitiveness, and a strong economic performance. For example, okay, we look Japan and Germany. So Japan and Germany saw a sustained rise in their exchange rates in the past war period because they had a good economic performance. So short-term movement in the exchange rate can be misleading to the overall economic situation because it might be driven by speculations rather than a long-term economic improvement. Okay, we move to the next point, which is economic growth leads to increased revenue and profitability, which can create some great opportunities for your business. But this opportunity must be considered carefully. As a business owner, you also need to be doing what you can to prepare your business for an inverted economy downturn as well. Before jumping at every opportunity that presents itself, you need to consider how it will affect your business should the economy take a turn for the worse. This is a conversation that needs to be made with trusted leadership at your business, such as financial advisors, shareholders or investor, and team leadership. The last point that I can conclude on this topic, which is the effect of economic growth on business is incredibly positive, which is your business is likely to earn more customer, increase profitability, and more experience great opportunity for further growth and expansion. When you approach this opportunity with wisdom and care, you are able to both grow your business and prepare it for any downturns that might be in the future. That's all. So that's all from me to conclude the overall of this topic. So hopefully you guys can understand what have been presented to you. Thank you.